Hello, welcome back to On the Continent. And today I wanted to speak about Florian Wirtz because I can't remember the last time I was not just this excited by a player, but excited by a particular performance that he'd given. Now, it was a strange weekend really for Bayer Leverkusen because they fell 6 points behind Bayern Munich at the top. I don't think Leverkusen have been particularly bad or anything this season. Just Bayern have changed under Vincent Kompany. They've started picking up points with an absolutely relentless regularity, and they're not conceding as many goals. Maybe something that you wouldn't have imagined that Kompany would sort out. But, you know, there's no real panic at Leverkusen because they're still in the mix for the DFB Pokal. They can still defend. They believe that the Bundesliga, even though it'll be a lot harder this season. And of course, they're still in the Champions League too, and hoping to secure a top 8 place this week going forward as well. And Wirtz is at the heart of all that, just like he's at the heart of all their good things. He was at the heart of all their good things last season. But it was really a collective effort for them. You know, you look at the fact that Jeremy Frimpong was great, Grimaldo was great, Xhaka was great, so many other players, Rudetsky, Andrich, all showing up. And sometimes I think it felt like Wirtz was just sprinkling a little bit of stardust on top. I remember speaking to Xabi Alonso in last November, so not the November just gone, but the one before 23, when they were on the way to winning the double, although obviously not that close because there were still months to go of the season. But I think the interesting thing was he said like his system was just a template and his players should be trusted to interpret things as they wanted to. But Wirtz was the one who he said had special privileges and was allowed to leave his zone and just do the magic, work out where to do the last pass, work out where he should dribble and carry the ball, and work out when he should give it to someone else, work out when it was time for a shot. He trusted him totally because he's such an instinctive talent. And when you hear Florian Wirtz's teammates talk about him, that relationship of trust is quite clear. And I think it's interesting to talk about him in parameters of, is he even approaching best player in the world status? I said when he started his first couple of games in the Champions League this season, notably that away game at Feyenoord in which he was unbelievable and they were unbelievably efficient, taking Feyenoord apart at De Kuip, where obviously the opposite happened to Bayern last week as they lost 3-0, although it was perhaps a slightly misleading score. It goes to show that Leverkusen and Wirtz are completely comfortable and completely at home in this refined air of the Champions League. There was never even a question that they were going to adapt and be good at this level. Of course, they got that hiding at Liverpool, but you know, anyone can get a hiding at Liverpool. I don't think it's a particular knock on them as a team. But I guess the difference this season and why we're talking about him in terms of could he be the best player in the world or could he be getting to that stage, I think is twofold. Firstly, if we look at it from a global perspective, there's the fact that Kylian Mbappe, despite that brilliant hat-trick at the weekend at Valladolid for Real Madrid and the feeling that he's really hitting his straps and settling into Real Madrid, he's had a tricky year and a half. There's no doubt about that. There's the off-field stuff. So PSG owing him 55 million euros. The criminal investigation that he said he was never informed implicated him, but that's been dropped, obviously. All the other stuff last season about him being left out as PSG tried to either get him to sign a new contract or force him out, and the effect on his fitness, which led to him having such a poor Euros, that's maybe damaged his case. Erling Haaland's case has been a little bit damaged by what's happened with Manchester City this season, in the sense that if you don't provide for him, perhaps he just can't deliver. And that's fine. If he's just a penalty box player, that's just fine, of course. He's still probably the very best at that. But Wirtz is a conductor of the orchestra. And I think this is great for the future of Germany, obviously. The fact that Julian Nagelsmann has sort of hit on this idea of playing Wirtz and Jamal Musiala, another one with a claim because he's an unbelievable player and maybe even Bayern's best at the moment. the idea of the two of them leading Germany forward is particularly exciting. But Wirtz is someone who is not just pulling all the strings, but scoring a lot of goals as well. Scorer of 18 goals last season. He managed to, I guess what they call in NBA, a double-double of goals and assists, both in double figures. He's got that already this season for club and country. He's on 14 club goals and a ton of assists as well. And I think this weekend underlined why he is and how he has become such a leader. Because, of course, he's still only 21 years old, so he's still learning a little bit. And he had a great week of learning, as Xabi Alonso put it, because they lost away to Atletico Madrid in the Champions League last week, and Atletico targeted him, and they're right to, of course, because he's such a brilliant player. But there was the feeling that them winding him up, them seeking to kick him out of the game a little bit, it got under his skin, and he and Leverkusen took their eye off the ball, and of course they lost that game in stoppage time, despite the fact they were a man up for 50 minutes before Pierre Nkapie was sent off, and that levelled the playing field in terms of 10-a-side. And Wirtz came into this game, and Leipzig had obviously watched it, and you saw a bit early in the game where the captain of Leipzig, very experienced Hungarian defender Willi Orban, came face to face with Wirtz at the touchline and had a bit of a go at him, and Wirtz had a go back. But with the very next action, Wirtz picked up the ball, dribbled round Orban and Artur Vermeeren, had this incredible outside of the foot shot that hit the post. Patrick Schick put in the rebound. In the words of his captain, Lukas Hradecky, it was the perfect response. It's exactly what you wanted from him. And he went on to set up another goal for Alex Garcia. And if we talk about him like learning tricks and maybe being a little bit more streetwise, in the build-up to the Alex Garcia goal, which he set up with another dribble and pass, it was examined by VAR in the end because David Raum, the Leipzig left-back, came into him with a sort of studs-up tackle. And as he was sort of trying to ride that, Wirtz's studs landed on the calf of Raum. So Raum and Leipzig were saying the goal should have been disallowed. The referee's view was, well, he couldn't really avoid it because he was the victim of a late challenge himself. But maybe the feeling that he left his studs there a little bit longer than he had to was Wirtz's way of saying, okay, well, I'm not going to put up with this and I can mix it as well. But globally, it was just that he got on with his game. Leipzig could not handle him all game. He was absolutely fantastic. He hit the woodwork another 2 times. And with the late Edmund Tapsoba goal that gave Leipzig a point, they were a little bit fortunate because Leverkusen had the chances to finish off their game. And on another day, they would have. And of course, that is the thing with Wirtz. He stands up at these biggest moments. If you think the first chance that Leverkusen had to seal the title last year, and they should have been nervous because they'd never won a title before, but they showed no sign of nerves. They beat Werder Bremen 5-0 at the Bayer Arena to spark these incredible celebration. And Wirtz came on as substitute to score a hat-trick. And I think the fact that Xabi Alonso has kept him fresh by using him not all the time. So he starts mainly, and he expects to start, but it will leave him out of the odd game, Xabi Alonso, just to keep him fresh. And I think with such a physical load on players, that's really, really important because, if we go back to what made Wirtz what he is used to riding out rough moments because from the moment he signed for Leverkusen as a 16-year-old, he'd spent nearly a decade in the academy at Köln, just 15 minutes down the road. And Köln were really unhappy that Leverkusen signed him, not just because he was a player of such great potential, but they felt that they'd sort of violated an unspoken agreement that they wouldn't poach players off each other. But Wirtz went across, despite that controversy, and he was so good in the youth team at Leverkusen that they gave him a debut, making him the youngest player in the history of the club, beating the record of Kai Havertz when he was just past his 17th birthday. And he looked great straight away. But then you fast forward to 2022 when he gets a cruciate ligament injury, And it takes him a while to get past that. So he's 10 months out and it takes him a little time to get up to speed. But I wonder if that's kind of helped him in the long term, because Xabi Alonso, it's one of the reasons I think, allowed him that freedom when he came back in, because he's like, okay, we don't want to overburden you with defensive responsibility, even if defending is a collective responsibility. So that gave him that freer role to interpret. And he was so effective in that they stuck with that going forward. So look, I think in this post-Ronaldo Messi era, obviously we are looking about for our next best player in the world. And I don't think there's necessarily one overwhelmingly convincing candidate at the moment. There have been points this season, I think, when we've all felt it's Mohamed Salah, who's been unbelievable for Liverpool this season. And there have definitely been weeks where it's felt like it's his. But there's no real consensus on this. Now, to, I guess, clinch this title, at least in the short term, Wirtz is going to have to do something pretty outstanding over the next year and a half. I guess you're looking forward to the World Cup, for example. Before then, you're looking at Leverkusen going very deep in the Champions League, at the least. Some people will be looking for him to step up a level and, go to one of the biggest clubs in the world. So be it a Real Madrid or a big Premier League team or wherever else. Now, interestingly, he doesn't feel his future is connected to Xabi Alonso. So even though we expect Xabi Alonso to move at the end of the season, Florian Wirtz won't. Mainly because he's just too expensive at the moment. He's certainly too expensive for Bayern or Real Madrid. You're looking at north of 150 million transfer fee and probably 20 million a year wages as well. So that's something that a lot of big clubs can't bear at the moment in this atmosphere of FFP and in the Premier League PSR. So you feel he will stick at Leverkusen for another year. He signed an extended contract, so he's working with the club. And when he eventually does leave, it will be an exit that they facilitate. I think everyone will be happy with that. And him and his dad, who looks after his affairs, have a really, really good relationship with the club. So it's something that they will manage as part of his career. And of course, as we've seen with Haaland and Mbappe, managing a career is really important for great young players of this generation. So obviously he will move on from Leverkusen at some point. But while he's there, he's so brilliant that they will almost certainly continue to be a contender for those major honours. And maybe in turn, that will help him stake his claim to be the best player in the world. Hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to go onto your favourite podcast catcher to, of course, subscribe to the podcast On the Continent with me and Dr. Adebayo and a selection of brilliant guests every single week. That's every Thursday on the podcast. And of course, we answer your questions. That's right, your questions every Friday on Ask OTC. You can leave them in the comments below or get at us on the socials.